what are the different potentials for humanity when we drop out the old stories, when we reappraise our lives and look at what life is actually all about. It tells the story about an individual who drops the narratives in that sense, and then it goes into observing what I was happy to hear also from your end, that what is the collective potential? What is the potential of humanity when we allow ourselves to meet ourselves and meet each other in a more open and in a more loving way? What are the different opportunities for us as humanity and as a planet to evolve in the future? Since, as I said, I'm living in the Garden of Eden. I'm living in like heaven on earth. And to me, the challenges that we have, I'm not denying those. I see them more as an amazing opportunity for us to co-create things.
Welcome to Connecting with Coincidence. I am your host, Bernie Beitman, MD. I'm a psychiatrist. I love studying the meaningful coincidences, otherwise known as synchronicity and serendipity. I've got a new book coming out called Life-Changing Synchronicities, and it's about my own life told through coincidences. But I'm working on another one right now, and it's addressing the collective human mind, starting with the collective human organism, that we're all individual cells in a large body, and that we can recognize that or not, and be both a cell that participates with the rest of the organism and a cell that functions on its own. And that dynamism between separation and integration is a major challenge for humanity right now. Also, as part of this new book, is trying to understand the collective human mind. Yes, there is a collective human mind, and there's various names people use for them. And the noosphere is a more technological term. It's based on more materialistic thinking. The internet is a great example of that. I've introduced a term that's been around for a century called the psychosphere, which the psychosphere is a collection of our non-technological minds. It's more mental than more brain, if you will. And it's a place where telepathy takes place, among other things, and we can communicate with discarnate beings. And then the last sphere in this is the Gaiosphere, the consciousness of Earth. And we're all in this. Our minds are embedded in these three layers. And how that operates for the future of humanity is the challenge that we're all facing, and what I'm trying to be able to write about. And I'm really pleased with our guest today, who contacted me 2 weeks ago. And I don't usually get a chance to get to talk with somebody soon after I run into them, but Virén is the founder of Holokinetics, is a nature enthusiast, as you will see. He loves sitting out in nature and seeing what happens. And an explorer of life. He's an explorer of life. Like, okay. But I think it means life with a capital L, actually, a couple of L's. Over the past 15 years, he's experienced a deepening collapse of local identity, allowing new layers of perceptual reality to emerge. Through holokinetics, Visa playfully shares life's paradoxes, and there's so many paradoxes. You know, what is a paradox? It's two physicians, a pair of doctors. Paradox, to start off with a playful way of talking about it. And he integrates science and philosophy and spirituality to guide collective inquiry into non-local awareness and emergent knowledge. Emergent knowledge comes from putting together things that aren't used to being together, or something weird happens, and then something else comes out of it, emerges out of it. And we got a lot going on right now in the world, so there's potential for a lot of stuff to emerge that is bad and is also good. He emphasizes the shift from rigid individualistic perceptions to a fluid, interconnected understanding of reality, fostering collective intelligence and creative exploration. You can get to his website. It's going to be in his bio as part of the thumbnail and on the audios. So welcome, Visa, to Connecting with Coincidence.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here, Bernie.
And I'm glad you're here too. So why don't you tell us about the coincidences that you see, the synchronicities you see when you're just sitting out there in nature and
Yeah.
just sitting there, dissolving your sense of identity. And what happens sitting out in there in nature? Tell us about those.
Sure. Thank you.
You're
Yeah, I guess
welcome.
that's the beginning point of the whole notion for me in that sense, that the beauty of just sitting in the nature and observing all the different things happening, all the different plants and animals moving and interacting with one another, and just kind of observing how am I relating with whatever is happening outside of myself, and just the notion of how crazy it is that we are even existing on this planet. If we think about things on a really wide perspective, what a coincidence it is that I'm actually sitting as some sort of an existent and a being that somehow can interact with its surroundings, and feel and experience, and dissolve, and also kind of be a separate being in that kind of reality. That has always been something that's been part of the mystery and part of the life deeply for me, and that has also been kind of the ongoing deepening of the said experience, like you mentioned before, of okay, there is this apparent separate me here, and then at the same time, as I'm just sitting here and observing whatever is happening, at some point I might notice that, whoa, there's actually no time. There is no recollection of how long I might have been sitting on this beautiful part in nature, and just kind of existing in that beautiful ebb and flow.
And as you are existing in nature, I imagine you sitting, I imagine seeing you sitting under a tree or someplace. I like trees and scanning. And I do this with a certain place that I tend to go to, and I lie down on the hill. It's a little mountain, and I feel sometimes embraced by the mountain as kind of this things come around me like a cocoon, and there's a certain like it's like energy work without the energy worker. The mountain is the energy worker. And then I can sit up and I start looking around at the trees around me. And the trees are sometimes pretty funny. The kind of the stuff that they do and the kind of shapes that they have and the kind of organizations that they have. And I'm wondering if that's what you are experiencing, something like that when you are yourself looking around.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. For my, I would say that for my experience, it's mostly, you could say, as it's kind of implied in the holokinetics thing as well, that the experience of kinetics starts to lose its meaning. Like, where am I physically? Where is the body of this said individual, and where does, for instance, the tree begin? And that begins to blur, and then it's more like a dance between me as a physical materialistic some sort of a mass of energies, and then the masses of the trees, and so on, and it can really be a beautiful dance and a beautiful exploration of, okay, what's there, what's moving, what are the different shapes and sizes and formations that we actually are when we get into a state of, you could say, profound relaxation or ease of being, where we kind of can get to more attuned to, for instance, those you could say three different expressions, like I heard you mentioning about the different kind of spheres of existence, going all the way to the Gaia as well. So it's about how can we kind of relax into allowing all of that to show itself to us as well.
I keep hearing in what you're saying that you have a bit of trouble existing separately from what's around you. And I say trouble with quotation marks because you like it. You like the dissolving into everything, and you kind of like it. It's okay. I can be Visa, but I also it can be non-Visa, or I can be integrated with what's around us. And you are describing what's necessary for humanity to experience and know, and then experience, which is to be able to be your own individual self, a solo self, or a holon, which is another term for what you're describing with holokinetics, to become part of the whole thing. So that there's this dance,
Yeah.
there's this rhythm that we all can do. And I think we run different musical versions or different rhythms of being a lot ourselves or a lot connected or integrated with what's around us. And you are a leading edge to that experience that I'm assuming, because you are having that separation integration experience, that there are a number of other people also doing that. Uh, let me ask you that. Is that your experience? You know other people doing this thing that you're doing?
Oh yeah, sure, yeah, and for myself, words are tricky in that sense that um, words stem from, you could say, the consciousness, the collective consciousness in that sense, and we interpret words in different ways, beautiful ways, and then there is the collective way of interpreting words. Now, as we're of course mostly communicating with the words that the humanity now has, uh, one could say that all of us are experiencing this dance between these different states, whether we are aware of it or not. Now, then, some of us are more aware of this ongoing dance that's happening, and for sure, there are people in this planet who are doing this, and then they are using their own words, their own vocabulary to attempt to describe that experience and that expression, also potentially for some people who might not be aware of this said dance that's going on.
So you're doing the word thing, Visa. You're doing the word thing. The limitations of words, says Visa. The limitations of words. Good, because that's all part of this. That's all part of this. Because I'd like to see a form of communication that relies less on words. That word. What are you nodding for? I'm going to ask you. What?
Because I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm actually I'm having a constant exchange of information with my wife, mostly verbal, in that sense, that I would love for us humanity to someday be even on a place where we can basically just exist in a shared field, like you and me are at the moment. We could basically just touch different parts of our auric bodies and basically just communicate with kind of pressing different parts of our shared existence. That would be lovely for me. It can include words for sure, and at the same time, it's not limited to the Well, many times idiosyncratic meaning of words, which can get us a bit bogged down into what are we actually expressing and what are we actually talking about and experiencing. So for sure, I love the notion of maybe a bit more free way of interacting and exchanging information.
Yeah, and I've got some ideas about that too, in addition to the auric field or the bioenergetic field around us. We are first we have to admit that we have this energetic field around us, and we can't just say it's energy, it's information and energy. And some people want to say it's information. Other people say it's all, no, they're tied together most of the time. I can't say all the time. So you have energy, you have information in your energy field. So you and your wife and anybody else who's open to this can like make points of contact with those with your each other's energy field, and information can come through and what would feel like to be intuition because it doesn't come through the regular senses. But then after a while you learn to be able to expect communication that way, and you can trust it, which is a big problem, is learning to trust it. And that becomes a more efficient form of communication.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. I wholeheartedly agree with you in that, and that whole notion gets me excited about the different nuances of what is possible for us as humanity. Like you also mentioned that the way I perceive it is that there is an invitation for us as species and also as the whole planetary being to evolve from the current conditions that we are into something that is even more beautiful and more harmonious and exchange of information in its most pure form. I'm not saying pure as in there is something that is not pure, but us realizing that actually everything that moves and flows in our existence is harmonious and beautiful as it is, and then we can also learn how to kind of evolve based on the different kind of streams of energy and streams of information that are available for us when we kind of drop the notion of how things maybe seem to be in the rigid reality.
Flows of information.
Yeah, yeah. That's
What other, go ahead. What I want to know what you mean by that, besides maybe this auric field.
yeah. I would say that, and now we go a little bit more also into what some people might understand that as quantum physics, quantum reality, but like when you allow yourself to drop in that state where you are not rigidly holding on to your perception, there is seemingly what one could call more spaciousness for the awareness to come in and kind of enlighten you in that sense, and therefore there is more bandwidth for you to observe all the different flows of energy, all the different informational highways where energy and information exchange and correlate, and it gives you kind of a wide horizon and countless myriad different ways to observe the reality, which by now at least some of us realize that it's a holographic reality, and that gives us more kind of an ability to observe all the different possible ways of also the kind of the seemingly rigid materialistic world to stay in place. And that to me is the most alive thing in all of existence and all of humanity. Just to be able to observe all the different ways that life can represent itself, all the different colors and shapes and forms, and also of course the kind of the formless side of information. And yes, that is what I also heard you say, what can be described or put into words as intuitive knowing. Just these different ways of, okay, I don't quite understand how or why I know what I know, and still there is that strong sense of, okay, I'm at ease with this piece of information. I'm at ease with the notion that if this is also true, it doesn't, there might have at some point be some sort of a resistance of seemingly different types of things, or two things that might seemingly seem to contradict each other. And then there is that kind of a, just you kind of just beautifully lose yourself into that contradiction, and at some point you just realize that actually the contradiction is not there. It's just an open playing field, and a field of opportunities for also these seemingly contradicting pieces of information to exist. And there's seeming like a less, it seems that the human body also becomes less reactive to all the different possible outcomes that there might be, and you can just kind of relax into observing whatever there might be flowing in that kind of a field of abundant awareness. And that, to me, that's the beautiful creative place where I believe that we as humanity can then also learn how to start kind of getting new insights and getting new creative inputs and things, also for the betterment of the planet and humanity and all existence in this planet.
You seem to be describing the capacity of each of us to not be caught up in what's around us in a reactive way, but more in an observational way, that we see all these things flowing through us and around us. The information energy highways that are continuously running around and through us and through other people and between people. You can step back into what I call the self-observer, the ability to observe your own mind. Your own mind is usually the way these information highways get to be recognized as recognize, which is see, recognize as see again, cognize again. And you're not, this is a Buddhist, if you will, or a mindfulness, but that's not enough to just use those terms. It's somehow not being distracted by the pulls that most of us are distracted by, and seeing this flow of information and energy. Uh, and then you talk about how I'll use the self-observer can be useful in the future of humanity, in creating a better existence than the one that we are headed towards currently. Could you talk about how that works, please?
Sure, beautiful, thank you.
You're welcome.
I would say that there is a strong evolutionary trend, if I put it this way, in the potentiality of the future human to move from the seeming trinity that we have at the moment, moving from this, or realizing the trinity unity where basically the three becomes one. And this is of course something that different wisdom traditions have also spoken, and this symbolism can be seen in different traditions for sure. And the way I would, or Holokinetics kind of describes that notion is the idea of us having three brains. We of course have one here in the head. Our heart is one of them, and then our gut is the third. And the notion that our brain is strongly correlated with words. The way that our head brain functions has to do with spoken word and different connotations of written language and so on and so forth. Now, the invitation here is the notion that our heart brain, which has a bit of a different type of tendency to the head brain, it's more attuned to information in picture forms. So different types of visions and picture forms of information. And then the gut has to do with basically just pure impulses, movement. And you can see this in different wisdom traditions, different cultures, different storylines as well, that you just somehow you have this sense in your gut and you just act on it. That's basically just you have the ability in your gut brain to kind of just go with different types of impulses. And the potentiality for humanity in the future is ingrained in that notion that as things seemingly go more complex, you could say that the pace of reality and life has gone more complex over the past decades and centuries. And at the same time, there is the invitation to actually just realize and learn how to embody the whole humanity and become more and more rooted in the wholeness of humans, where we have the ability to just basically sit and observe and absorb information and energy also in different frequencies, different bandwidths, different ways. And that has to do with kind of, in a way, activating the three different brains. And of course, ultimately the notion is that as in everything in our existence, there ultimately is no separation between these different brains. Our head brain and heart brain and gut brain, they are in continuous flow of energy and information. They are exchanging different kind of energy patterns all the time, whether we are aware of it or not. And they are in a constant flow in that sense. And that's part of the opportunity for humanity to also realize. And in that, there is the possibility to become or create more harmonious action also externally. When we can kind of allow ourselves to not force things, not create things out of a force of a habit, but more like just opening up to the new opportunities and kind of allowing all those things to flow through us in the perfect way that the kind of the creation unfolds.
What is holokinetics?
Beautiful, thank you.
You're welcome.
Holokinetics, as the word implies, it's basically the movement of the whole. It's a narration, it's a storyline, it's an attempt to invite individuals into this type of a conversation and exchange of energies that we are doing here at this beautiful moment. It stems from the notion that, like I just mentioned, that we as humanity, we have the ability to let go of the seemingly rigid sense of ourselves and allow ourselves to expand into this kind of a ever moving, ever flowing awareness, where ultimately there is no separation between you and me, and there is no kind of need to kind of force or fix anything. So it's basically an invitation for humans to exchange information and energy between each other, and what it is, how it is at the end of year 22 to year 24 in our human existence at the moment. It's a set of different books that I've written in the past, and an online platform where you can kind of easily exchange information and kind of learn about these different things, whilst the deeper understanding that ultimately there is nothing there offered, because when you kind of interact with knowledge like this, you paradoxically start to realize that, oh yes, I've known this all along. This information is stored in our beings, in our existence. And as I let go of the rigid notions of what is wrong or right, or what is real and what is not real, I can actually start to exchange information, and I can also start to kind of attune myself into the ever-flowing information that we have as species, as the planet has, and also in a more kind of a celestial forms as
well. Holokinetics means movement within the whole. You've just described movement within the whole, where I become part of the whole. And there's still an I as that becomes part of the whole. Is there some kind of like rhythm between I and moving within the whole?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. I guess we could go really deep in that. Um,
Good.
I haven't been able to um, pinpoint a place in a way where me and not me, and the whole and not whole, where they meet. I would say that, and in that lies the, you could say, the mystery of life, that at to my knowledge, my experience, the ability for us humans to adeptly describe that mystery in our spoken or written words, we just don't seem to have it at this moment. And that therein lies the whole paradox, the whole paradoxical notion of it, that at times it's like breathing. At times there is a more rigid sense of being here present in a physical form that's not moving anywhere, and then at times it's more about having a more kind of a whole perspective, where eventually even the whole notion of a separate self can vanish. And it is like the waves of the ocean. And in that, most of the time, the describing of that experience is done in some sort of a poetic or storytelling way, because we don't seem to have the ability to describe that existence in words that completely narrow it down. We can point towards it, and we cannot quite kind of we cannot exactly calculate that said phenomena. And I think that's wonderful. I guess that's I'm content and happy with dancing in that ebb and flow of life in that sense.
Well, my heart gives me pictures of that question. The words are don't do it, but the be able to see what I might call a very permeable boundary between me and around. And it's permeable in the sense that I'm using my fingers and little parts of me go across this boundary, and the wholeness enters into me, and it does it to different degrees in different with different energy flows, information flows, but it's a fluid boundary that probably moves depending on where we are and where the whole consciousness is. The question makes us have to think about that going between self and not self, or the whole thing. And so we've just tried to put words around it, and I hope our listeners and our audience get a little bit idea about how to think about that. But that's the essence, from what I understand, of holokinetics, is wondering about that kinetics between me and the bigger thing. Uh, as we talk about this, Visa, let's go back to the idea of meaningful coincidences, and that your idea that they emerge from a vibrational flux field. Could you tell us what you mean by that? Because I think it's related.
Oh yeah, I guess we could rewind the conversation maybe 37 seconds and replay what you just talked about the field. I guess that's it pretty well summarized.
Oh,
Uh, the whole notion of reality, how it's described in the holokinetic way of doing things, uh, is that depending on how well we are able to zoom in or zoom out from our own existence, we can all the time see that malleable exchange of information between, whether it's two human bodies in this spoken word, whether it's between particles, and as we start to zoom in, most of it is just seemingly empty space. Now the notion of, okay, if we go into the future, however many years or centuries, technology and or our awareness might evolve so that we actually notice that, well, it wasn't that empty at the end of the day at all. And that's the whole notion that and maybe I describe it in a different way. Some of the wisdom traditions, such as the Aboriginals in Australia, according to the legends, at least, they navigate during nighttime, not by looking at the stars, but looking at the depth, the darkness in between stars. And that's the whole same notion, that what if we just stare into the space between two stars? What if there are new layers of information opening up all the time in that space? And that's basically the notion of the flux field. So that there is a continual informational exchange, energy exchange there, and like basically like you described, we can learn how to interact and get more attuned with that informational flux field, even in our daily lives.
well, I like this image of staring at the space between some stars. There's something that's poetic and practical about that, because you can do that with almost anything. But if you have two things that appear to be different and separate, and there's nothing in between them, so that it appears, if you pay attention, give your attention, and be open to what's in between, you can get more. You can pick up more more flex fields, more information and energy. Now, I want to go back to the interpersonal part of all this, Visa, because we don't get along to each other very well in this planet. In case you hadn't noticed, uh, I've noticed a lot of fighting going on here, and I'm right and you're wrong. It's this soloness is a disease of humanity, and you are offering a way to, like, say, no, we're in this together, and it's not enough for me to tell you that. You've got to experience it. And Holokinetics becomes a way, and your website is a way. And what books have you written? What are the titles of your books so our audience could know?
Yeah. Well, firstly, this might be a controversial way of seeing life for some of the people, and if it's controversial, I invite everybody just sit with whatever the notions are that arise within, because they are perfect as they are as well. I live in a world that is ready. I live in the Garden of Eden, and that's the notion of, okay, whatever there is going on in my life, whatever there is going on in the lives around me, what if I tune my pace of living, let's just put it this way, to whatever is going on in my life? If I have a good day, I can run. If I have a bad day, let's take it easy. Let's allow ourselves to be a bit more compassionate for ourselves, and allow ourselves to just take it with the pace of life that is harmonious for us. And I would say that if we cultivate this type of thing in ourselves, I bet that could enable us to be more kind towards our families, our neighbors, our even to our enemies as well, seeming enemies in that sense. And that's basically the whole notion between and behind the different books I've written. One of them is beautifully named Divinity Manual, that describes a seeming paradoxical journey of an individual who goes into what somebody could tell or call a spiritual path. What are the different avenues and different types of experiences that one might experience there? And also it describes a little bit how you can learn how to exchange, and read information in that flux field. And then the other book that is most prevalent to mention here is one that is called Life Reappraised, which has to do with these notions that we're talking about here, that what are the different potentials for humanity when we drop out the old stories, when we reappraise our lives and look at what life is actually all about. It tells the story about an individual who drops the narratives in that sense, and then it goes into observing what I was happy to hear also from your end, that what is the collective potential? What is the potential of humanity when we allow ourselves to meet ourselves and meet each other in a more open and in a more loving way? What are the different opportunities for us as humanity and as a planet to evolve in the future? Since as I said, I'm living in the Garden of Eden. I'm living in like heaven on earth. And to me, the challenges that we have, I'm not denying those. I see them more as an amazing opportunity for us to co-create things. I come from an entrepreneurial background, and I look at things in an entrepreneurial way, in that, okay, if there's some sort of a challenge somewhere, how can we come together, co-create something that provides value for whatever the case may be, whatever the situation may be? And I see the different challenges that we have on individual levels, and also in the collective and even planetary level. I see them more as a beautiful opportunity for us to co-create, and co-create from a place of, this is something that we need to fix, more from a place of opportunity. We have these challenges, and we have an opportunity to unearth and kind of find new ways of coming together, and also new ways of kind of seemingly fix those challenges that we have.
I'm all for the idea of taking crisis or difficulty and trying to turn them into opportunity for making things better and learning, which and having a good time when possible, because I like to be able to do that. So let me give you a humanity challenge right now and see how your ways of thinking would do something about it. One of the recurrent patterns in human and also in other animals' lives and social organizations is the power pyramid. This power pyramid appears in humanity from before feudal times and is so very prevalent now in the way governments and big businesses are organizing to have a few on top have the most and those underneath. That's a power pyramid that's been around in humanity ever since before we had recorded records. And animals like monkeys and apes have the same kind of thing, and other animals do too. So this is a recurrent pattern, this power pyramid, in life, many parts of life on Earth. Indigenous tribes tend not to, but when you have smaller numbers of people and scarcer resources, it's easier to be flat in the pyramid instead of a couple of people on top. This pyramid is persistent. It's highly resilient. You knock it down, you have a revolution, and you get another pyramid. That was what seems to happen. So, given what you're talking about, how would you address this almost intractable problem?
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks.
Welcome.
Well, first of all, there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of energy in that structure, and that to me tells firstly that our human bodies, our biology is also wired to interact with that said structure at the moment.
Yep.
So becoming aware of the different adrenal and functions. Let's not go too deep into that field here, but just to be aware of the biological response that we seem to have when we interact and when we are in that force field, because once again it is a force field. And mainly what is not just a novel idea by myself, something that it's been repeated the world over, is the notion that what if we can in a way step out from the set structure and just to observe the power dynamics of that structure and to become aware that ourselves, we are exchanging information and interacting in all the different levels and layers of the set structure. So become inherently aware of the fact that no matter where I am residing in that seeming structure, I am part of the whole. Whether I'm the top dog or the bottom of the bottom or somewhere in between, ultimately there is no separation between you and me. And when that realization comes more prevalent, and when we start to cultivate that, then the opportunity to start coming together and observing that, okay, how can we maybe more first in a minute scale, how can we start to reconfigure these
I'm sorry.
structures?
I'm going to interrupt you there, because the biggest problem is getting people to be willing to see that we're all part of this thing.
Exactly.
Then doing something about it is a lot easier.
Yeah.
But getting people to activate their self-observers to see that we're all participating. I'm glad you add the physiological element, the almost genetic element to want to go back to the pyramid. It's in our genes to create those. It would appear. I mean, it has to be. And so we have to look at our genetic makeup and the history of our bodies to look for that. But Visa, the hardest thing in getting people to change is getting people to want to change. to be
Yeah.
needing to change. And you're talking very poetically about what we could do. And yeah, we could, but we can't because there are so many people who won't look, who won't observe their own minds, is the way I start with this. Observe your own mind, step back and compassionately and but also objectively look at what's happening within you and then be able to look at what's happening between you and your wife or your husband or your partner or your friend. These are hard things for people to do. Just do it right here, right now with me and then with somebody else. So my challenge to you is not my challenge to you. My challenge to for our challenge for humanity is get them to activate their self-observers sufficiently well so they can begin to be open to seeing themselves as part of this pyramid and that there is no separation. You know that from your own experience, but I'm afraid, Visa, a lot of people don't.
Yeah. And therein lies the paradox, the conundrum here, which is, even though it's, you could see it as a daunting challenge, for my physiology nowadays, it is more like a, a, a dear, loving embrace, in that sense that we cannot simply force people to start observing their own selves. We can, what you could call, act as an example and invite people into that. Because once again, if we force them into that, then it's the same power dynamics again. So in that sense,
They can't be forced.
exactly,
They can't
exactly,
because they got to do it on their own, but they can be shown a possibility. But in order to be seeing the possibility, they've got to be open to seeing the possibility.
exactly.
And a lot of them don't want to open their eyes. And one of the problems with the pyramid is that the people on the bottom who are the most negatively affected tend to be hungry, tired, overworked, threatened, frightened, not allowing them even the time and the space to be able to observe themselves. That's a problem.
Yeah, for sure. That's one way of seeing it. Um, and at the same time, um, I wouldn't even call what's coming out is, I wouldn't even call it as trust or faith. It's just an observation of an opportunity for humanity, in that sense that when the polarization of the collective experience of humanity seems to become stronger, it tends to be a wake-up call for many. And then that is the opportunity for us to reach the tipping point where, and I'm not saying that I know anything, it's an opportunity where some sort of a critical mass within
Yeah,
the
yeah.
human gene pool
Some a
also
critical mass, and the
yeah,
critical mass that I am trying to find, help develop, acknowledge each other are those who are able to self-observe very well, who are like you. You're really out there with that. You're able to like get rid of the self and just observe, which is I can get there occasionally, but you're there a lot, and that's wonderful. And people like you, I would like to be able to see, not necessarily me, but I'm thinking of it, and create or find the collective self-observer of humanity, the collective self-observer of humanity, so that people like you and me can come together to observe what's going on in human mind in a way that maybe we can find that tipping point. But we have to do it collectively. I can't do it. You can't do it. We have to pull the collective self-observer together, which can have a greater view because we'll have multiple people with different ages. I think there are some teenage people who are really good at this. It's amazing, and their parents don't know what they've got in their kids. That these they just every once in a while I can tap into one. I was doing a telepathic communication with a viola player that I just briefly met the other day, and while she was on stage, we were looking at each other, and I know we were playing with each other, and she's you could see that mind going, but her parents are okay. You got to go to school. You got to do got to do that thing. So there are people at all age ranges. It doesn't matter the age; it's the capacity that we're talking about. So I want to be able to see if I can become part of a collective self-observer. Uh, I'm the only one that I know who has stated this, but because I'm stating it, one of the principles of synchronicity is if I'm thinking it, somebody else is too. It's just a matter of finding them. So that's one description, but I want to add one more thing as we get near the end of this. The book I'm writing is called Psychotherapy for the Collective Human Organism. So, in order to do psychotherapy, you've got to get your self-observer as a therapist connected to the self-observer of the patient, and the two of you then together look at the mind of the patient. All right. So when I came up with this title, Psychotherapy, the Collective Human Organism, well, the idea was to have this collective self-observer develop. But then I asked myself, well, who's the therapist in this? So we got the collective human mind and the collective human absorber and the collective human organism coming into a therapy. I mean, clump, 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 clump. The thing come in and says, "Oh, my wife's mad at me because I'm destroying the planet, so I need some help." And so, okay, we developed the collective self-observer of humanity, uh, and connect with it somehow, but who is the therapist in this scenario? What do you I'll tell you my idea, but as you I think you understand the picture I'm developing. Who's the therapist? What's the therapist?
Well, thank you. I love the sentiment in the book and the whole aspiration. I
Thank
would
you.
say that, well, for me, actually, what arises in my body, in my heart field, as a pictograph, as a picture, is the notion of us coming together as a collective, and then, for instance, gazing into the skies and looking between the stars. So what I would say is that I personally, maybe one of the last beliefs that I seem to hold is the notion of the power of the collective intelligence, power of the collective sense making, and in that the group that comes together, when it comes together in that way of, okay, we come together as a collective self. The group itself has what you could call a self-healing mechanism.
A what?
A self-healing mechanism,
Okay.
if that's a word to be used in this situation. So that's my answer.
Well, it could be self-organizing as another way of using the terms. It does it by coming together. Well, in order to be able to make a major change, I'm with the idea that you can't use the same ideas that got us in trouble already. And we've had self-organizing around for quite a while, and we've self-organized, and I'd like to think that. But I'm yesterday, I came up with my answer to the question of who's the therapist, and I think there's more intelligence around us than we acknowledge. And if you stare between the stars, it's one way to get to it. But there are intelligence that are inherent right here in maybe the noosphere and certainly psychosphere and the Gaia-sphere. And I believe that there are discarnate beings running around out there in the psychosphere where I kind of localize them, trying to communicate with us, but we've got to be able to be open to them. It's very much like going into therapy. You got to be open to the therapist. So I think there's a lot of other intelligences around that as we come together and start self-healing, it's not really about only us doing it, whatever us means. It's if we say collective human organism as this as what we're talking about here, which is where I'm starting, because we're the ones who are ruining the planet. It's not anybody else. There's got to be an agency, a sense of responsibility taken here by the collective human organism. Okay, I'm an alcoholic. I want to be able to change. Okay, uh, I, that admission is part of the process of a subset of humanity, not the whole thing. You're right. It's got to be a good enough percentage, and it could be around 20%, it could be 11%, it could be anything around that's not the whole thing. Coming together and saying, we recognize together and we want to do something about it. And we'll do something about it, self-healing, many different ways. But I think the therapist is the intelligences around humanity, which you are in touch with in nature, because those trees are mad at us. The horses are mad at us for what we're doing to them and to the ecosystem. And they want to communicate their support for us and communicate to us and have some idea about what to do about it. But there's guys like Carl Jung around who started the synchronicity thing, who I think is having a little conversation with a lot of different people around here and trying to be able to help us. And I'm one of them. And to me, synchronicity becomes one of the ways, that's my contribution to the self-healing, because it connects us from the environment to us, to our environment that's unseen, the parts of us that we don't see, but we can feel with our heart and kind of sense sometimes with our gut and intuitively come up with stuff. So that the therapist is some yet to be defined and can't be defined set of intelligence that want to help us if we are willing to accept the help.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I love that. I love that. One phrase that comes to my mind is the notion that however hard we try, we simply can't fall out of life, because we are life. Like there is no separation between us and life. And life can also, I'm open to the notion that life can also have a higher form of intelligence. And for sure, I think we are more and more adept with communicating with said higher form of intellect or knowledge or awareness of life. So I think that's a beautiful and exhilarating adventure for us as a humanity, because I fully wholeheartedly agree with you in that sense. My twist or my
Yeah, your
input
twist.
into that,
Yeah.
my input into that beautiful menu is the notion that yes, it is a great opportunity for us to do that. There is a seeming need, there is a necessity, and there should be a sense of agency and ownership for us. Yes, and at the same time, it is an opportunity. It is a joyous thing for us to do, since at least for my experience, from that place of uh, open and abundant joyfulness, it is more easy to also communicate and interact with the said higher intelligence. So that's the kind of the sprinkle of joyfulness into that invitation, and it's like I'm fully in with that for sure.
Hey, play is part of the fun of this. I mean, it's the play is part of this. Is why I do this. I mean, I feel grateful to be writing this stuff and telling and being able to tell you about it. It's like crazy. I'm working with artificial intelligence, and I've reached the limit of what ChatGPT 4.0 can do for me. It's
Yeah,
just not
beautiful.
working anymore. I'm getting too complicated for it. It's a really fun place to have gotten to, but amazing too.
Yeah.
I like doing this, and it's the pleasure and the fun. But one of the best forms of research, if not the best, is play.
Mhm.
And
For
we're going
sure.
to play. Well, I'm going to end with one question that I wanted to know. I mentioned that I'm thinking about a collective self-observer, and that I can't be the only one, but I don't know who else is thinking about a collective self-observer. Do you?
Mm. Not in those words necessarily. I would definitely put myself into that category. I definitely have some names that are popping up that are, I would say, interacting in that in
Yeah, interacting
with
in that way.
in that intention of bringing that intellect and creating that space for sure.
All I'm doing is giving it a name.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, and when you give it the name, the collective
yeah,
self-observer, then you begin to develop a secondary collective self-observer,
yeah,
the second
yeah,
collective self-observer. And that's an important notion as well. So by the labeling is useful sometime. So I'd like to have a gathering of people like you to talk about the collective self-observer to see if we can collect the collective collect the collective self-observers and to create a collective self-observer, or at least begin to understand what we owe, whatever that means, each with their own
yeah,
twist on it. Mine's
yeah,
synchronicity. I mean, that's the one I bring into it. Other people have other ones, and so if as you find more people, and I wouldn't want any more than four, more, maybe six total.
yeah,
Um, if you can find them, because I'm not, and you're out there more than I am,
yeah,
if you can find them, let me know, and a we'll create a something where we can discuss it,
yeah.
and it should be something that we advertise and get out and do it just cold without having much stuff, just to see what happens from the spontaneous thing of it. How does that sound to you?
I love it. I love it. And actually, like, well, maybe this is one of the meaningful coincidences in that sense that as we're coming to the end of the year, I was one day sitting with the notion that yes, is there something coming up for me for the next year? And the thing that came up to me most strongly was to have meaningful interactions with what you could call like-minded beings. So that's definitely you're already kind of checking the one thing that I wrote for myself for next year.
Well,
So thank you
good.
for
You
that.
you you're in Portugal. Um, you're you you but again, you're out there more than I am, and I, I I do it from my desk. So you got the idea. I'm saying, Visa, get out there and let's get together with some more like-minded people, specifically people who can observe themselves, have the heart and gut connections, and are willing to consider, I'm adding this at the end, and I'm willing to consider that we can communicate telepathically without having to use a lot of words. And the words can help it, but we can pick stuff up even over Zoom about what somebody else is thinking.
Yeah, beautiful.
So, thanks a lot, Visa.
Thank you, Bernie. It was lovely to converse with you.
Hey, thank you too.